Oscar. This is ISS, over. I'm ready for the first question, and buongiorno, thank you for connecting us. Spacewalks, we actually have oxygen tanks in our suits, and so that's what allows us to breathe it out. We also have a piece called Medox that scrubs our carbon dioxide, because that has to get taken away as well. Over. Did you ask me about a space station? So this space station, it took a long time to build, so if we do another one, that will take a long time, but we want to do one on the moon. I didn't hear your question exactly, but if that was it, if that wasn't it, let me know. Over. Question about the space station. So this one took about 10 years to build, but I think we really did this to test it out. If we build another one, we'd want to build it so we can test out our next thing that we want to do, which is probably go to Mars. So we'd like to build a space station maybe on the moon as a practice test bed, and that would also take a couple years, at least. Over. I hear you loud and clear now. So, if we get sick, and we try to avoid that by going into quarantine beforehand and making sure that we're not sick when we launch, so we don't get the people up here sick. But if we do have all sorts of medical equipment, and we have a doctor on console and mission control. Over. Is really interesting. We have people like myself who's a helicopter pilot, we have jet pilots and other people in the military, but that's not all. We have doctors, engineers, scientists, even a veterinarian. So to become an astronaut, usually everybody is in a STEM field. They've been there such that they maybe ran a lab or maybe was in charge of something and ran a team. And once you become an astronaut, you have to learn what spacecraft do and how they fly. So that takes a couple years before you actually get to go to space. Over. There's all sorts of things that we learn. We are test beds, so we're learning about ourselves, and that means that we've really engineered telemedicine, because we work like the question you asked earlier. How do we make things smaller, bring them up to space, because everything that comes up to space is expensive. So if we don't have to do that, how can we do like telemedicine? And that has helped with people all over the world. We've sort of been the pioneers in that field. Over. This is a great question. I didn't think about it because I didn't think I could do it until I was actually in my mid-20s when I was a test pilot. And then, I had the opportunity to actually meet an astronaut, come down to Johnson Space Center in Texas and meet people. And I realized that, that their job wasn't so different from my job as a tester, and it seemed like it was obtainable. But I knew I had to get a master's degree to get in. So, yeah, people who have the job encourage me to apply and start working here. Over. There's a lot of sort of scary things. There's funny noises on the space station. I was out on a spacewalk, and it was lasting a long time, and I was really worried about making sure that we gathered everything, were able to get back to the airlock. But also, even flying on spacecraft, launching on a rocket, our spacecraft on the way up here was making some funny noises, and it was a test flight. We learned that there was some couple malfunctions in some of the jets. So all that's we're trained for those types of things, and we do a little bit of risk analysis and understand everything about what we're doing. So hopefully we can get out of those situations. Over. realistic. It will take a little while because we'll have to figure out how to get places a little quicker so we don't have to spend so much time in microgravity. So that's one thing, engines. And then we need logistics. How are we going to have clothes and food in other places that are not like our atmosphere? So those are things that we have to figure out. So there's all sorts of things that we're going to learn along the way as we try to go live someplace else like Mars. Over. Interesting question. You know, it's actually a little bit easier. Your heart doesn't have to work so hard because it doesn't have to overcome gravity by pulling blood down from your, up from your lower extremities. So that's one of the muscles that we have to work out, why we have to do aerobic exercise. Over. Interesting. Just yesterday we were doing some stem cell growth up here. We're also sequencing some DNA. We're also doing tests, like I mentioned earlier, on ourselves. And so some of those things will help us. Maybe this is a more pure environment to do some of this type of stuff like grow stem cells. So hopefully we're learning all of these experiments will help us in the future. Over. When you're leaving the Earth atmosphere, that's pretty quick. You know, when you're in a rocket and you're launching, I think people don't understand that it only takes, depending on what altitude you're going to or what orbit you're going to, for us it only took about 10 minutes. And so that's a very dynamic time as the rocket is flying, and then you're getting essentially punched off the rocket in your spacecraft. So leaving the atmosphere is just pretty quick. It's more of a sensation feeling. But once you get up into out of the atmosphere and the engines stop and you automatically start floating. That's a whole other different story. It's a little bit odd, but you get used to it pretty quick. Over. Yeah, great question. You know, we have a nutritionist who helps us with our diet, and then we also have people who help us with organizing an exercise plan. We have a bike up here. No seats. You just clip your feet in the pedals. We have a treadmill, which you have to tie yourself down to the treadmill with a harness and essentially like bungees, which holds you down. And then we also have a weightlifting machine that uses vacuum as the force so that we can actually lift weights. And we need to make sure our bone density in our hips and our feet and our legs is okay. So that's why we do all that exercise as well as the muscles and the cardiovascular exercise. Over. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think so. You know, it's a closed atmosphere up here, so sometimes people get maybe a little skin rash or something like that, some little reaction. You know, our immune systems are a little bit lowered up here. We try to keep the place as clean as we can, but we've had people living in space for over 20 years, so there's been a lot of people up here. But I don't know about a specific sickness. Over. You know, that's interesting. I think the greatest challenge is, one, getting here, and then secondly, when you get here, I think you miss things about Earth. It's sort of a weird paradox. I miss my family, of course, and my husband, and just walking my dog. So I think that's sort of a challenge to be in touch with everybody and sort of stay in touch with what's going on Earth, because things just keep going on while we are away. Over.